Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Naughty with Captain Frank. So today we're going to be talking about dual primary fuel filter installations. Most boats come with a primary fuel filter, but if you install a secondary primary fuel filter, then you can switch from one to the other in case it gets clogged while you're coming through that rough inlet. Crud gets stirred up from the bottom of your fuel tank and clogs your fuel filter. If you have a secondary primary fuel filter, you can just switch over to that, and hopefully that can get you through that inlet safely and with a limited fuss and muss and no problem. But before we get started, please don't forget, if you like this video, to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends and all the people you hate too. And also check out my new podcast section. I've tried to, bring myself into the 21st century or whatever one it is now. And we're trying to do podcasts. So please take a look at that as well on various platforms. They'll have them here on my YouTube channel, but also I'm on, iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, all the major ones. So please take a look at that as well. So let's get back to the topic of you and your filters. Fuel filters are important from both a maintenance and a safety standpoint. Contaminated fuel can not only shut down an engine, but it can also cause expensive damage over the long haul. Most vessels come equipped with a single primary fuel filter of 20 to 30 microns. For gasoline engines, it's typically 10 microns. And fuel filter is mounted between the fuel tank and the engine. The purpose of this primary filter is to strain the bulk of gunk and goo that your fuel system accumulates, solids, water, microorganisms, whatever. Strain that out prior to reaching the finer filter, typically 2 to 10 microns, that's mounted on the engine itself. Technically, this already means you have a dual fuel filter system in place. In reality, however, as both filters are in series, once the primary clogs, the finer engine filter will be fuel starved, meaning you'll have to shut the engine down if it hasn't already shut itself down to change the now clogged up and useless primary filter. The addition of a second primary fuel filter gives you the option of quickly switching to a clean primary filter without the need to shut down the engine, change the clogged filter, and purge the fuel system of air. You can convert to a dual fuel filter system by adding a second primary filter to your existing system, or by installing a pre-engineered system containing a switching system and dual filters. Adding a second filter to an existing system is straightforward. When planning your system, in addition to the diverter valves, which allow you to switch between the filters, be sure to install shutoff valves upstream of each filter so that you can shut off fuel to the filter prior to changing. Clearly labeling the valves and other system components will also help ensure the valves are properly positioned during normal use and when shifting from one filter to the other. Always follow your engine manufacturer's recommendations to choose the right size filter. A filter that's too small won't provide sufficient fuel flow, while an excessively large filter wastes money and may have difficulty separating water from your fuel. Filters are sized by fuel flow rate, which is typically expressed in gallons per minute or hour. Features to look for when purchasing a filter unit range from advanced water separation design to built-in alarms indicating the presence of water or restricted fuel flow. Spin-on cartridge type filters are popular due to their ease of changing. However, the entire fuel system must be bled of air each time a filter is changed. Filters with top-loading elements are typically a bit more expensive. However, they allow you to simply add fuel to the filter once changed, and depending on the system, you may not have to bleed the fuel system of air once you've changed the filter. When mounting your filter or manifold, as with any project, measure twice and drill once. Make sure that you know what you're drilling into. Punching holes in the wire runs and hidden hoses behind the bulkhead is always a bad way to start an installation. If you're adding a second fuel filter and space is limited, keep in mind that the new filter can be mounted in a different area than the existing filter. Filters are typically mounted as high above the engine as practical to allow for a limited gravity feed to the engine. In most cases, they'll also be mounted higher than the bottom of the fuel tanks, meaning you can't reprime them after changing elements by gravity flow alone once the fuel level in the tank drops below the tops of the filters. You can plumb a priming pump into the system between the primary filter and the engine to help with priming after installing a new element. Just remember that any air the pump sucks from the primary filter will have to be bled from the system at the secondary filter or engine bleed points. Okay, to expand on this topic a little bit, how do I know when my filter element needs changing? In addition to the classic symptoms accompanying a fully clogged filter, engine surging followed by complete shutdown, many engine problems that initially appear to be mechanical in nature, such as missing, surging, reduced power, excessive black smoke, all can be often traced to a clogged fuel filter. Fuel filters should be changed regularly and documented, along with engine hours, in your maintenance logbook as part of your vessel's preventive maintenance program. Another way to monitor fuel filter condition is installation of a vacuum gauge. Little or no vacuum on the gauge indicates that the filter is clean, while high readings on the vacuum gauge indicate that the engine is sucking harder to get fuel through the filter, an indication that it's clogged and needs replacing. Bearing in mind that the gauge is accurate only when the engine is running. So in other words, you install a gauge, don't look at it while the engine's not running or it's not going to work. Vacuum gauges can either be teed into the line between the primary fuel filters and the lift pump, or in many cases, they can be screwed into the top of the filter housing itself, replacing the T-handle that's typically there. Just keep in mind, if you remove the T-handle on these fuel filter housings, and you put a vacuum gauge pump on there, you want to keep that T-handle mounted somewhere close by in case of the vacuum gauge malfunctions or whatever, and you can always slap that T handle back in there. While vacuum gauge markings vary depending on the unit, some simply have a green, yellow, or red zones. In general, if you have a vacuum gauge installed and you're drawing 5 pounds or more vacuum, then the element typically will need to be replaced. Finally, it's important to remember if the number one primary fuel filter clogs in heavy weather, the second one may follow suit in short order, depending on the level of gunk in your tank or fuel contamination. After switching to your number two primary, try to swap out the clogged number one filter element as soon as possible, so it'll be in the ready position should you need another. Get the secondary gets clogged, and you can switch back to the primary. Sailboats have the additional option of making sail if the primary fuel filter clogs in rough water, saving the number two primary to reach in calmer waters or when the engine is needed for docking or maneuvering. Bonus section. Okay, so here's the bonus section. Tips from Capt Frank. Number one, the best fuel system money can buy is no substitute for taking on clean fuel to begin with. When purchasing fuel from an unknown or dubious source, use a filtered funnel, or worst case, with diesel, a funnel packed with cheesecloth to help filter out as much gunk as possible. You should also carry plenty of spare fuel filter cartridges on board just in case, as fuel problems perversely tend to crop up in the most isolated locations possible. And finally, tip number two, a great place to start planning your installation is the standards and recommendations provided by the American Boating Yacht Council, or ABYC. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if so, you got to stay tuned for the next one where we're going to be talking about how to maintain your inflatable PFDs, personal flotation devices. The comfort of an inflatable PFD is a beautiful thing. It means the boater is more likely to wear one while enjoying the water, which is the end goal when it comes to life jackets and safety. So we're going to be discussing how to maintain your jackets, your belt units, your coats, your inflatables, all of it. So stay tuned. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if so, and you want to buy Captain Frank a cup of coffee, please click on the thanks button below this video. All tips received, not spent on coffee, will be used to improve my YouTube channel and create even more awesome videos.